Hey, everybody, good morning. Welcome to my listeners and viewers, numerous as you are around Europe. Hope you're all well. Maybe a couple Americans every once in a while jump in. Appreciate that. And anybody else around the globe, hope you are doing all right in these crazy times. Going to do an update here on the Bitcoin power curve. Did a show with my buddy Marty updating this and the monetary base and just talking about the trends of Bitcoin. Some people still have some questions with that, I notice, and how it works and all the rest. So just going to go through that again here. Here we have the old Bitcoin price curve. All right. Getting to close to 6,000 days of data. Okay. It's just days fed into the system. Actually, I need to take that off. And let's take that off as well. Let's look at the outside bands. Okay, now as I'm showing this curve, the bands are, you see, not smooth in the past. I'm doing that just to show how the multiples sort of looked at that time. Okay, because the power curve, this is the power curve, which is just math, statistical analysis, statistical regression. There's linear regression, logarithmic, exponential, power. This is power. Because we're on log scale and we see it's not a straight line. Okay, so I used to have the red bands a little bit wider. I've talked about this. I changed it this year just to make them a little bit more narrow. I showed sort of how the trend evolves. And since I like to do these multiples, unlike my buddies at the Best Bitcoin Data Group, which do, they're showing more of these quantile regressions, which are really, really interesting too. They'll draw smooth lines all the way back with percentages, percentiles, what percent of the time was Bitcoin's price here or there. I like to stick with multiples, okay? So this is the best way to show this. And you see at the beginning, we're obviously running at a much steeper curve because the bottom 97.5 percentile is almost to where the all-time trend is today, okay? The all-time trend was not that black line back in the day. It was steeper, faster, then leveled out, then started to find itself again, and we start to see that this is a power curve. So power curves suggest a different rate of growth than exponential, and I'll talk about what exactly that rate of growth is. And power curves are usually reflected in networks. Okay, I shouldn't say usually, but there is a tendency that power growth can occur in non-corporate entities, not in stocks, not in bonds. But if you look at something like the growth of the internet or the growth of Bitcoin, it shows to be power. So it's a sort of faster start, but then it gradually decreases the rate of growth over time. And this seems strong here because I'm on log scale, but it really is gradual, very, very gradual. I'll try to show that again. So anyway, see that obviously in the early days didn't have a lot of data, didn't quite know, what was what. But from about 2016, and I've said this since 2018, we see that the trend starts to smooth out to where this is obviously just modeled. You can see because it's nice and smooth. From the end of 2016, start of 2017, it's pretty much those red lines are looking really good, around the all-time trend line. The evolving trend line is here. Okay, so there you see it's my evolving. That's how I get my multiples. Okay, but the power, the all-time, that's more interesting to look at, and it's more interesting to see how predictive it could be in the future. All right, so here we are today. Actually, I think as of this model, I got it yesterday. $83,000 Bitcoin. It's about the same right now, right on trend. Okay, a little bit below trend, but more or less on log scale, right on. We were over trend as old Trump came back into the White House. Now we've amid some crazy markets fell back below trend. But this is a strong trend. This is not a Peter Schiff buy gold trend. This is a monumentally strong trend. And again, what's the point of the red lines? Is to draw a multiple or figure out a multiple that over time has shown to be very rare error on the upside and the downside. So on the downside, see the 2.5 percentile, it means 2.5% of observations are below this red line. The multiple is 0.2x. And what's the x? What's the multiple on? It's on the regression itself. So 0.2 times 95,000 is the trend line. Will get us to 22,000. All right. And it's not exactly 0.2, obviously. So it's not, 0.2 on 100,000 is 20,000, obviously. So it's not exactly 0.2. It's a little bit above that. And then on the upside, the 97.5 percentile, that means 2.5% of the observations throughout this whole model will be above that red line. And what's that number? $339,000 per Bitcoin. And we are right on trend, basically right on trend, even amidst all the FOMO and anti-FOMO craziness in the markets. If we assume this is the big year, and many people still do, by the end of this year, all right, $125,000 price. But if we move up a few legs over the multiple, like we did in 2021, like we did in 2017, like we did in 2013, okay? If we actually kiss the red line, and remember, I've retweaked this model a couple times, still didn't kiss it in 2021, but let's assume that we do here at the end of this year, $450,000 Bitcoin. All right, so that's the price. That's the latest on this regression analysis. And even if you assume very, very bad days for Bitcoin somehow with, I don't really see how one could assume that with the positive moves that are happening with both the strategic reserve and the sovereign wealth fund that Trump proposed, both of which presumably, certainly with the strategic reserve, but sovereign wealth fund as well, presumably is going to get some Bitcoins in there eventually. Seems hard to think that we would just crash to the bottom level, but you never know. Certainly could. Certainly could. But see that with this, multiple analysis that I have as it evolves, it's really rare to hit the 2.5 percentile down. The 16.5 percentile we did hit in 2022. Okay, this is the height of fear. Oxymoron. This is the depths of fear. Sam Bankman-Fried, who's now getting interviewed by Putin lover Tucker Carlson to get out of jail. He got exposed, rugged, and started the long saga that eventually put him in jail. That all happened at the end of 2022. Of course, Peter Zeihan, who I actually agree with on a lot of geopolitical things, but doesn't know enough about Bitcoin, said on Joe Rogan that Bitcoin at $16,000 was $17,000 overvalued. He said this in 2022. And you zoom out and you see what happened. This is an extremely strong trend line, and I'll keep saying it again and again and again. It's fine to think about hyper-Bitcoinization and massive FOMO and, face-ripping gains with Bitcoin. Certainly it shows that over many different times and goes into sort of a different parabolic mode. But it comes back generally to this trend line, and it has done so since 2016. All right. So that's the power trend on the price. Just a little refresher. Okay. Now I want to show basic money. This is something I've also been doing since 2018. There's the top 5 currencies in the world: the dollar, euro, yuan, yen. The yuan, Chinese yuan, is in the gold. Japanese yen is in the red. And then the formerly great British pound sterling is $1 trillion equivalent in that purple there. And then you got the next 45 currencies in the light blue. About $5 trillion in monetary base value, but the top 5 are 20. All right, so pretty visible, clear, no matter where you look at it. Pareto distribution, right? Doesn't really matter where we zoom in. Top 5 currencies are always, 80% of the pie, 80 to 90%, in fact, of the pie. All right. And here I'm showing that, of course, in the dotted black line on the right. But as I made the point on my buddy Marty's show, TFTC, and I always try to make, these are two different curves. All right. This is exponential growth. This is base money growth. It's the core of the system money growth. This is the most analogous money supply to Bitcoin. All right, put it on log scale. What does it look like? Still looks jagged and rough, but what does it look like on log scale? Let's take off the percentage here. You can draw a straight line. I don't have that on this chart, but you can clearly draw a straight line. On log scale, what's a straight line? It's exponential. The regression, the trend, the general movement of global money, even though they've gone crazy since the global financial crisis, it's still, over the long arc of history, exponential. It's exponential growth. It means constant growth. And I have this figure that I've derived. The overall monetary inflation, if you put all the figures in there and you weight them, it's 12.7% per year compounded. 12.7% per year compounded. Let's go back to Bitcoin. I could do a market cap. I could do price. We show this chart. Is this a straight line on log scale? The answer is no. Here's linear. Here's log. Linear doesn't tell us much. You can look at the tooltip, of course, but it's harder to see what's happening. You put it on log scale. It's not a straight line. It's a sort of concave down, gently declining slope. All right, it's faster at the beginning, slower later on. That's power. So if we now want to combine these, Bitcoin, all right, versus fiat money, and I didn't probably even say it this video, what's the latest? 20 as of last year end, 25.5 trillion. Right, that's my latest update. We're already getting close to end of Q1, right, this month. But as end of Q4 2024, $25.5 trillion, which is down $5 trillion from COVID top. COVID top, 30 trillion. See that in the tooltip, 30 trillion. It is down, but again, I hasten to say a lot of that, in fact, the majority of that decline is dollar weakness. They also are pulling back generally worldwide in printing press, about 3% since that time, since that COVID top. Think about that, only 3%. But if you look at that 16.5% dollar drop, that's the majority of that is currency weakness against the dollar. Dollar remains best looking horse in the glue factory. So can we combine this chart with this chart? Of course we can. But what would the effect look like? All right, what would the effect look like if I have a power curve blended with an exponential curve? Well, let's take a look. I should have taken these things off to make it more. This is a percentage. This is Bitcoin in market cap terms versus the monetary base in global dollar equivalent terms, okay, for as long as Bitcoin's been in existence. Look at that. Do you notice anything familiar with the way this looks? Does it look more like this, a straight line on log scale, or does it look more like this, a gently declining slope of a power curve on log scale? And of course, the answer is the latter. It looks almost exactly like the price curve itself. All right, we can draw a trend line through it. So this is a percent now. This is a percent of Bitcoin. Remember, we've dropped a bit now with this drop. We were over $2 trillion for a while, over 100 grand per Bitcoin. We've dropped. So I take the market cap, not just the price, but the market cap divided by this total mad money supply, which is the fiat monetary base, and you get this percentage. All right. Still a power curve. All right. What's the latest values? We were 8%, 8% of the total at the end of last year, start of this year. Now we are down to 6.4%. So under trend again, some weakness, definitely some weakness here, but not as far under trend as we were here. 200 basis points below trend here. 2 percentage points below trend here. When Sam Bankman-Fried's FTX filed for bankruptcy with 0 Bitcoins on their books because they just engaged in genuine fraud. Yes, I know depositors got some money back based on their AI investments and all this other stuff, but I'm definitely with CoffeeZilla, by the way, on just calling out the madness of someone like Tucker Carlson, who again sits down with Vladimir Putin, softballs, nonsense questions, acts like no other journalist in the world wanted to interview this murderous, bloodthirsty, tyrannical dictator, and then interviews Sam Bankman-Fried saying, why, how could it be that you were put in jail when you donated to the Democratic Party? It's just nonsense. It's actually surprised that the corruption didn't work in the system. See CoffeeZilla for more on that. Anyway, stick with things that work. All right. If you don't trust the system, withdraw your coins from the system. It's very simple. That's full reserve Bitcoin, is if you withdraw your coins. Bitcoin is flirting with 10% of the monetary base. Okay. It got to, what was the actual high? 8.2. Yeah. 8.2%. Got it at the end of last year, start of this year. Okay. Bitcoin's market cap reached 8.2% of this number, of this total. All right. The world. See, that's $25.5 trillion. Right. Peter Schiff has been saying for 11 years, more than 11 years, since about 2011, that Bitcoin is going to zero, and Bitcoin is not on a trend. Gold is on a trend. Gold is on a trend. It's an exponential trend, just like stocks, just like bonds, just like base money. Bitcoin is on a power trend, and the power trend of Bitcoin is way stronger than any fiat trend. How can I prove that to you? I can multiply this trend by this trend, and what is the result? It's this trend. And since the result is not exponential, it's power, we can conclude that the power trend of Bitcoin dominates. It's way stronger than an exponential trend. Way stronger. If you multiply power by exponential, you get power. It's an unbelievable trend. All right? So we get FOMO here, 2017. We get FOMO here, 2021. We get FOMO here, 2013, also a little bit in 2011. First empty Gox hacking occurred, by the way, like right here. This was a $30 Bitcoin. It fell down exactly at this point, mid-June 2011. The first one. There were many. The last one is here, 2014. And as we know, late last year, those depositors were finally made whole because Bitcoin goes up in value. At least whole on their yen. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but they were made whole on their claim in a currency. But if you don't trust the system, you can withdraw your Bitcoin. That's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, and that's the thing that nobody can take away from anyone. Sam Bankman-Fried couldn't take that away from you. Nobody. As long as you withdraw your Bitcoin, hold your keys, use multi-sig. I always recommend. I'm in a dangerous part of the world. I always say that I'm using multi-sig, multi-jurisdictional. If invasion happens, I can just walk across the border. It's crazy to have to say that these days, but this is the world that we're living in. If you don't trust the system, just withdraw your coins. Okay, let's go to the 1 sigma now. All right, so this is the same thing. These are on the percentages. Okay, so we got a wavy trend line in the past, solid in the future because no one can predict the future. All right, anywhere, let's just zoom in to say here, anywhere from 0.1% of the monetary base to 0.5% of the monetary base in 2017, 2021, like this is middle of the range, right? 1 sigma roughly means two-thirds of the time, 67% of the time. These are percentiles, but I'm sort of analogizing. It's the same thing as analogizing, excuse me. Same thing as 1 sigma. In 2021, something between 0.5% of the monetary base and 2.5% was normal. And now, normal run-of-the-mode behavior is 2.6% of the monetary base, 2.5% of the monetary base, and 8%. 8%. This is incredible. Think about that. Bitcoin went from nothing, 0% of global money, now a normal, run-of-the-mill episode. It doesn't matter. Just back it up, relax, Bitcoin and chill, as Jack likes to say. Just look at where this is hanging out between 3 and 9%. Between 3 and 9% of the global monetary base, Bitcoin is, and Bitcoin will remain. Fell under during the FTX SBF debacle from that scammer. But generally, it's between these blue lines. And it's for sure between these red lines. All right, this is 2 sigma, roughly 95% of the time. It's definitely between there. And Bitcoin is definitely going to remain. Again, definitely is a caveat. I'm using statistical words here. Most probably, Bitcoin from now on is at least going to be between 2%, that's 2 sigma down there, 1.7, 2%, and 25% of the monetary base on the upside. Now that 25, of course, is more rare. Getting up to the red line is obviously more rare. It's the same principle as with the price. Again, we're looking at the percent of the monetary base. But this is the same curve. It's the same beautiful power curve. And it's only going to get stronger and stronger as time goes on. The Lindy effect. If it's been around for 10 years, likely it's going to be around for another 10 years. This is how networks grow. All right. So here, just to put on reference, this is the left-hand axis. This is the monetary base itself in purple. All right. And let's put that in log. So I have to take it off so you can see it better. There's the monetary base on log. Since it's in kind of a short time period, you can't really tell, but it's the same straight line factor here. But Bitcoin only started around the global financial crisis, so it does look like they're trying to pull back all their monetary inflation. Still going to be exponential growth. That's how banking works. That's how deposits work. This is a straight line on log scale, the trend line, for sure. But you take that off. And I gotta reset that. But anyway, put on. Let's take off this and this and this. Point is, Bitcoin market cap divided by global monetary base. That's central bank money. Will give you this green line, and it's just continuing to grow. And we're even seeing a fall in the monetary base. All right, they're trying to cut back a lot of the 2020 excess liquidity. And Bitcoin just keeps chomping into that market share, green line. So it is still growing Even when the price falls a little bit, obviously base money is falling a little bit more, so Bitcoin still is growing. But even if the monetary base picks back up again, in the short to medium term, that's probably going to be another impetus for Bitcoin to move a leg higher. But overall, remember, what you're seeing with this curve is a network effect. It's a network effect. This is an established financial system, and we can say it looks kind of normal here until the year 2008. Post 2008, because they didn't want to take bankruptcy loss from their terrible mortgage-backed security lending, they bailed everybody out and flooded the system with more liquidity, which they're still trying to undo to this day. Okay, I should do an update about trendline pre 2008 and trendline now. I should do an update, but not on this app. Regardless, this is exponential, powerful, run-of-the-mill money growth. GDP grows this way, population, stocks, bonds, they're all exponential. When you're quoted an interest rate to buy a car, APR, that's exponential. It's going to take a long time for your principal to double, but not so long. Remember, rule of 72, divide the 72 by the interest rate to get the time to double. So if you got a 2% loan, all right, your principal or what you'd have to pay back will double in 35 years, roughly 36 years. 4% loan, that cuts down to 18. 6% loan, you're getting close to 10. So you can't get around the world of compound growth. This is compound growth, exponential growth. Bitcoin, we can translate into exponential growth, but it declines every year. All right, and for that, I have on my website here. Oops, this is the base money page. You go to charts, only one chart up at the moment. Sorry, still working to get these things out. Go to this table, and to see the Bitcoin growth, all right, this shows you the time to double. It's not a fixed percentage like exponential growth. It's an increase in time, which is proportionate. That's what power means. And the number is about the same number as what fiat money grows exponentially, but this is a different figure, so it's just weird. It's a weird coincidence. 12.7, 12.8% increase in days of the Bitcoin network, the value doubles. All right, adoption doubles. Okay, so here, 2013, $63, increase by another 213 days. All right, we'll get you to here. 2014 March, value doubles. Right, so you can see that on this table on my website. And then here, for the actual, to sort of translate it into compound growth, we're running right now between 45 and 42% per year compounded on the power trend. The power trend is moving down from 45% compounded. All right, the slope is getting gradually a little bit less, but not much, from 45% to 42%. Remember, stocks, bonds, anything over the last 50 years would get you, in the case of stocks, 7%. If you reinvest your dividends, 9% per year compounded. So Bitcoin's at least 4 times greater than stocks, 5 times greater than bonds, 10 times greater than gold returns, all the rest. Not 10 times than gold. If you did gold price, it's probably 6 or 7, 8 times better than gold returns. All right, so that's how it works. That's how the power curve works. And the last column on this table, I hope, again, I just want to keep drawing attention to it. It should paint a picture of why the Bitcoin power curve is interesting, why I keep coming back to it. It's because if you look at the early years, okay, what this last column tells you is what would the power curve projection be today based on how the curve was operating back through this year. So in 2010, obviously it was going gangbusters. 2010 was this type of a curve right here. Super fast growth. All right, it's the dotted line, not the black line. Super fast growth on that dotted line. So if you just project that out to today, you get $4 billion Bitcoin. Stock to flow type projections, right? They're wrong. I'm trying to say they're wrong. Stock to flow type projections. 2011, same thing. You get $160 million Bitcoin if you used only through 2011 power curve data till today. Same thing all the way till 2016. Once you got to the end of 2016 and on to today, we're pretty close on the projections. All right. 2017's curve, remember that includes the boom, $110,000 Bitcoin today, it projects today. 2018's power curve, if you go all the way through 2018, obviously we still have the boom, it projects $131,000 Bitcoin today. 2019, you're deflating that projection because the price went down in 2019. This is through the year 2019. $116,000 Bitcoin, $104,000, $124,000, so on and so on, until we get to the all-time power curve, all right, which is $95,116 today. That's the trend. This is average price, so it shows you we're average price for the year, pretty close to the trend. Okay. Actual price, 10 grand, 12 grand under trend. But this is like nothing I've ever seen. I mean, it's using math. It's not drawing lines on charts. It's not picking tops, picking bottoms. It's using all the data to get a sort of cumulative understanding of what is the adoption of Bitcoin. And it's accurate. It's pretty darn accurate. And it has been since 2016. So no one knows, obviously, if this will break in the future. All right. But as I say, I think I say it here. We're just using this as a baseline. All right. I'm not saying I know the future. No one knows the future. It could break. But this is guidance. This is guidance to see what the adoption of Bitcoin could look like. And if past performance equals future results, should look like over the next 10 years. All right. And by 2035, the power trend is about, at the moment, showing $1.8 million per Bitcoin. $1.8 million per Bitcoin. Also, an unknown is, of course, the when does Bitcoin become part of the global monetary system? All right. When central banks start stacking Bitcoin, or when treasuries start stacking Bitcoin, we know that they're already doing that today, still to a small amount. Someone like MicroStrategy and the corporate treasury world is doing even more, well more than any central bank at the moment. We don't know. We don't know exactly what it looks like, how strong the dollar will remain. U.S. military prowess is still an important thing, although a waning importance, like the Ukraine war is showing us that drones are, and cheaply made defense and offensive machines can do much more at a more bang for the buck, so to speak, than, F-35s. Maybe. Of course, I'm not saying that. I'm sure that members of the U.S. military, regardless of who's in charge, are trying to understand how can they dominate, whether it's the electromagnetic spectrum, as Ryan Macbeth talks about, you need to dominate the spectrum, or just dominate the traditional, how do you say it, the military theaters, land, air, and sea. That all affects the dollar too. Definitely does. It affects the dollar. It affects who uses the dollar. It affects who wants to use the dollar. So this is all in dollars. It's in the world's reserve currency. I'm not saying that the world's reserve currency will still be the dollar in 10 years. Maybe it will be Bitcoin. But this is the best data that we have to draw an adoption curve of the technology itself. So when you combine a power curve with an exponential curve, which is base money, you will still get a power curve. It shows you the power trend line for Bitcoin dominates. It's the most important thing that Bitcoin is showing right now as far as how it is being adopted in the world. And right now the trend is nearly 8% Bitcoin value to the monetary base, and we're a bit under trend in this perspective, 6.4, 6.5%. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.